Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm here again and having another prophetic diary moment, keeping track of some thoughts and things that are going on. And I was, I've been watching a little bit of the convention stuff happening, and I've had some different thoughts about some things, and I just wanted to share those with you. Uh, I've realized over this period of time where uh, it's a lot of people can be very offensive, or take offense, uh, or become very defensive, ever how you want to term it, in terms of who they favor, who they don't favor, who they like, don't like, and so it really complicates so many things in the governmental process that's going on in the natural realm. And I some thoughts were coming to me. Sometimes when I'm watching these things, I will take notes that I I view as outside of the box of maybe what maybe a majority would be looking at or thinking about. Just because I'm trying to keep it in an eternal perspective rather than just the natural realm. And I was reminded of the saying, that you can hate sin without hating the person, and which is a conditioning of the heart and mind. Really realizing that bad stuff, people can do bad things, but yet we still are endeavoring to love them and to help them through that process at whatever love or whatever level that God calls us to in every kingdom of the world, whether it be in Hollywood, politics, it doesn't matter, science, you name it, whatever kingdom there is, that's what we're leaning into. And one of my thoughts and I know this is challenging sometimes to people who hear this, but I have believed for a long time that God is really determined to take religion out of the White House, and um, a lot of it is because of its prejudice, because of how people view things, even to the level of their emotions, their feelings, different things that go on. I just read a thing from Justin, a friend of mine in Spokane, just before I came on, and he put a little quote on there: "Love opens doors that no man can close," and I love that. I love that. No pun intended. But I thought, yeah, that is so true. I mean, that is just to me a kingdom fact that love does open doors that no man can close. And I believe that religion, in many ways, has become a stumbling block toward those who are trying to reach God. And I believe that the government of heaven that was manifesting through Jesus, that he was dealing with that stumbling block and made references that your that religion, your way of thinking, is becoming a stumbling block to those who are trying to engage with me to enter into the kingdom of God. Um, I realized too that there were leaders who came into this convention that's going on with an offense, and their posture was one of seemingly refusing to forgive, even at the cost of unity. And so you know how sometimes that there's a greater cause, but yet because of our personal issues, the things that I'm gonna, I'm right, I'm gonna stand my ground. So even at the higher expense of the goal that we're trying to reach toward, is that they can take offenses about certain things, and therefore the issue really ends up being all about them, and so that's sad. And I believe this is not the kind of government that we need in the White House. So, uh, I think I believe that in the government of love more today than I have ever known it before. and in any other time in my life. And and it's not because of my age, getting older. Actually, I'm getting younger. Um, but I believe it's because of spiritual maturity, maturation, and because of my perspective, how God is. I'm learning to see things more clearly through the perspective of love, and therefore there are things that get disarmed in my life, in my thinking, in my heart, and so there's a clarity, a prophetic clarity that I'm coming into more and more. And there's many people out there that I can contribute that to with their influence in my life for one degree or another. So anyhow, I'm coming into this realization more and more. But most of all, I realize that it gets rid of this level of prejudice toward those that seem hateful or the so-called ungodly actions, they're influenced and whatever's going on. And so, because of that, I feel like God is drawing me into a greater influence of government, a greater governmental influence, and therefore impacting the people in ways that are going to be far greater in the sense of drawing them deeper into this relationship with Him. I believe at the end of the day, it's all about influencing the heart of humanity in favor of the love and intentions of God toward them. And I believe that my decision to love more unconditionally has afforded me the opportunity to hear the heartbeat of God more clearly and more dearly. Therefore, enhancing the foundation of the prophetic function in my life. And because more and more I'm able to separate myself from any prejudice, any personal whatever, and like my opinions, all of that. And I'm not saying that you can't have opinions, but you just got to be careful of them because sometimes they can be very prejudiced. And I was thinking of Jesus. Jesus seemingly had every right to chastise, to rebuke, to do whatever, and he did a measure of that while he was on the earth. But he really had every right to do that when he was being punished, he was being whipped, nailed on the cross. He could have almost seemingly justified his stance, like, okay, it's over, it's done. But he didn't go out that way, and in the sense of what had happened. He just said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. In other words, they are being governed by another mind. Their hearts are being governed by an influence that is contrary to your love toward them. So therefore, he was like, I'm not even holding them responsible in this sense. I'm just saying, in other words, yes, they treated me poorly. I mean, he was innocent of all charges, but yet still condemned. And so his choice of government was, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Because if they did, this wouldn't be going on. But yet it's necessary. And it reminded me, I remember really thinking on this and the challenges of, it's like someone being in a circumstance. Well, what would you do if you were in a circumstance that was horrific and you had to forgive? You had to choose love over that. And I remember earlier on a time, and I know my daughter would mind me sharing this with you because of some things that she publicly put on Facebook in reference to that. But she was involved in a relationship that was very abusive. And she was going through some challenges in her own life, and we still do at different levels as we draw nearer to what we believe God is wanting to do. But she was going through some very intense challenges, which was very troubling to me as a father and to her mother as well. And it got to the point that it was very abusive until finally one night I got a call, and I she was at my niece's home, and my niece called me and said, "You need to come here. Amber's just been beaten." And of course, you can imagine as a father, I was just all this rage began to rise up in me, and like, how could anybody, I dare anybody just touch my daughter? And I remember going there, and I was heartbroken. It was all I could do just to bear just the marks, the things that I was seeing on her body. And as a father, I began to plead with her to come out of that situation and circumstance. And I was even outraged, like, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go beat this guy. And I even went as far as calling some people that I was in relationship with that were in the police force. One of them, being a captain and this and that, and like, okay, this is what's going on, and I need help here, and all this stuff. But anyhow, putting all that aside, I was just expressing my outrage as a father. And so I began to plead with my daughter to go to the hospital, get things checked out, and I wanted her to press charges. But at the end of the day, it didn't happen. And so I was just really, really disgusted by the whole thing, disgusted by her decision making, and it just really, really bothered me. And also how she could even end up in that type of predicament. And I remember going home, wrestling. I remember sharing this with her mother. Of course, her mother was upset, and all of these things were going on. And then it wasn't long after that the Lord began to work on my heart. And He began to speak to me about love, about forgiveness. And I knew where this was leading. And I was like, oh, Lord, I don't know if I can do this. And it wasn't long after that my daughter got a hold of me and asked if I would be willing. I don't know if I initiated it or she initiated it. I can't remember, but if I would be willing to talk to this young man. And again, at first I was just like, there's no way, And the Lord began to soften my heart. And He was like, look, Michael, if you can't forgive him, then you're not going to have influence in your daughter's life. You're not going to have influence in this situation, in his life. You have to be able to forgive him, as horrible as it is. And that's when you really come face to face to an intense reality of where you were at in your relationship, in your heart. Now, I know mothers and fathers listening to this, you could only imagine, and maybe some of you have gone through that you're faced with that challenge. And so I just surrendered. I said, you know what, Lord, I love you, and if I got to do this, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it grudgingly. I want to do it willingly, like knowing that it will have a cause and effect. So long story short, I started going, spending time with this young man, and just talking about his future, his destiny. I expressed my love toward him, and God just began to work on me. Something happened on the inside of me during this process. But I began to be able to see him, his hurts, his abuses, the things that he went through in his life, and was able to speak into that, and just many things. And so over a period of time, Amber ended up leaving that relationship, and just went on. But I always felt like there were seeds planted, and I still believe to this day that they will, rise to their fullest potential. Now, I want to remind you that I'm talking about government. I'm talking about the government that we are facing today, and our need to influence that government at a level that it's never been influenced before. And I also believe that there is a level of forgiveness, there is a level of love that is going to manifest in the government of today greater than any other time. But I believe the key is forgiveness. I believe that when we are offended, when there's things that go on, or you feel like that you were attacked maybe through a loved one or whatever, that you have to forgive. And I'm leaning into that, and I'm doing this video because I'm inviting you that as this governmental process goes on, that we lean into forgiveness. And I boldly have said that I believe Donald Trump and the people that God is going to gather are going to be the future government. But I've also said that the Lord has really moved upon me strongly, to pray for Hillary and Bill and other people, President Obama, and just that their heart would be captured by the love of God. And I realize that in order for us to do that, we have to get rid of the offenses, and we have to lean into the intent of God for humanity in this time. So in that sense, the Republican, the Democratic walls have to be torn down, because they create, you realize this is all about division. Trying to, a house divided against itself cannot stand, won't prosper. And God is wanting to bring us into a level of prosperity that we've never known before. And I know that the people have already realized, well, you can be in God and get that, but don't expect that with the rest of the world. Well, I have to. I have to believe that it is possible. Why? Because God so loved the world, and that He gave His only Son, because He loved the entire world, not just a corner of it, not just a little piece of it, but the whole world. And so I believe that we've got to take on that persona. We've got to take on that heart and mind concerning this government that God is declaring. I was reminded of an event that took place in 1999, and it was a mother whose son was murdered. Maybe some of you remember this. And her son was murdered by another man. And I remember her telling the story. I watched the video clip, and her name is Dorothy Holloway. It's on YouTube, and she hated this person who killed her son. And of course, it seems like only reasonable to hate someone who takes someone that you love out of this world. And then she described how she was tormented, like demonically tormented, the whole period of time that she chose not to forgive, and had felt like she had every reason not to forgive because of this great loss in her life. And then one day the Lord moves upon her, begins to say, look, you need to forgive this man. And so she, in turn, they started writing letters back and forth. And as this letter writing began, she began to go and see him as well. Long story short, his letters would say, Dear Dorothy, and then he would describe just the things and emotions that he was feeling, apologizing for, the best he knew how, for everything that he had done, how he had injured her. And then she gracefully began to respond back to him. And the amazing thing about this level of forgiveness is that his letters went from Dear Dorothy to Dear Mama, because she reached out to him to such a degree that he now viewed her as a second mother, because of the steps that she took to express her love toward him. And yes, he's still spending time in prison, the remainder of his sentence, but imagine the load lifted off of him simply because someone chose to forgive at a most difficult, challenging time in their life. And I could tell you countless stories of other people, other mothers, who sang songs in a courtroom in front of the person who killed their child as they were being sentenced, because they wanted them to know that they chose to forgive them. And other people that offered forgiveness even when the person who committed the crime was unremorseful, would show no signs of regret, but still publicly chose to forgive. I believe that this is the key to the government of our nation. I believe this is the key that will cause things to shift. That as we, as a nation, as a people of God, as sons and daughters of God, that if we just let go of the offenses and literally move into a field of desire to forgive, to love, we will begin to see an intense division, disunity that is upon this nation. It will begin to lift. In fact, I prophetically speak to you right now that we will begin to see signs of unity. I've spoken about this before, greater than any other time in history. I believe that there will be acts of forgiveness that will become public proclamations greater than any other time in history. I believe that all of these different agencies, all of these different moves that have been anti this or anti that, in the sense of trying to on the basis of prejudice, on the basis of pain, or feeling like they've been mistreated. And I'm sure that they're just, many of them are just in how they feel. But at the end of the day, I believe that the same Spirit that was in Jesus Christ, that is in Jesus Christ, that was in him when he was on the cross, was able to look and say, Father, forgive them. I forgive them. And I believe this is the government of the future. I believe this is the government of the near future. And I believe this government is rising up today at an unprecedented level. So I'm excited about what is about ready to happen in the government of this land, the shift that is going to take place, the no contest that we're entering into. And I'm realizing more and more that the no contest is going to be related to the love, to the forgiveness that God is implementing, is releasing upon this land. And you have the opportunity to be a sower of that very thing. I have the opportunity to do that. And now every day as I wake up, because of this more intense clarity that's coming to me about the future, things that are unfolding, my ability to function in ways that I seem bound before, all of these shackles being broken off. And it doesn't mean that I still don't have things that I wrestle with. It doesn't mean that I'm not constantly faced with other challenges, but more and more I'm breaking through them again and again. And so let me encourage you to do the same and rejoice in what God is doing and about ready to do, in the sense of manifesting this glorious realm through his people. You are amazing, and this is my prophetic diary for the day. Thank you for joining me. See ya.